So I've unmuted everybody. We'll now take refuge. Maybe ideally this is the case every week, but I'm feeling especially today to really, you repeat after me to bring your full heart and awareness to the refuges. Please repeat after me. I go for refuge to the Buddha.
I go for refuge to the Buddha
And resolve with all beings.
and resolve with all beings.
I will cultivate a heart of enlightenment.
I will cultivate a heart of enlightenment
And realize the great way.
and realize the great way.
I go for refuge to the Dharma.
I go for refuge to the Dharma
And resolve with all beings.
and resolve with all beings.
I will penetrate the teachings.
I will penetrate the teachings
And uncover oceans of wisdom.
and uncover oceans of wisdom.
I go for refuge to the Sangha.
I go for refuge to the Sangha
And resolve with all beings.
and resolve with all beings.
I will seek peace and happiness for the many.
I will seek peace and happiness for the many.
And transform this world into Buddha land unimpeded.
And transform this world into
Buddha land
unimpeded.
Right. I'm going to remute everybody. Please don't take it personally. It isn't, but we'll be chanting the Heart Sutra, which again is page 13 of the fancy book. It's also in the PDF. And I'll mute everyone, but please chant along with me. And then we will unmute and go around and check in. So. Dhamma Hridaya Sutra. The Bodhisattva of great compassion, from the deep practice of prajna paramita, perceived the emptiness of all five skandhas, and delivered all beings from their suffering. O Sariputra, form is no other than emptiness, emptiness no other than form. Form is emptiness, emptiness form. The same is true of feeling, thought, impulse, and consciousness. Oh, Sariputra, all dharmas are empty. They are not born or annihilated. They are not defiled nor immaculate. They do not increase nor decrease. So in emptiness, no form, no feeling, no thought, no impulse, no consciousness. No eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind. No form, sound, smell, taste, touch, or objects of mind. No realm of sight, no realm of consciousness. No ignorance, nor extinction of ignorance, nor old age or death, nor extinction of them. No suffering, no cause of suffering, no cease from suffering, no path to lead out of suffering, no knowledge, no attainment, no realization, for there is nothing to attain. The Bodhisattva holds on to nothing but prajna paramita. Therefore her mind is clear of any delusive hindrance. Without hindrance there is no fear. Away from all perverted views she reaches final nirvana. Though all Buddhas of past, present, and future, through faith in prajna paramita, attain to the highest perfect enlightenment, know then the prajna paramita is the great Dharani, the radiant peerless mantra, the utmost supreme mantra, which is capable of allaying all pain. This is true beyond all doubt. Proclaim now the highest wisdom, the prajna paramita. Gate, gate, ara gate, ara samgate, bodhisvaha. Gate, gate, ara gate, ara samgate, bodhisvaha. Gate, gate, ara gate, ara samgate, bodhisvaha. Dhamma prajna paramita hridaya sutra. We're now all unmuted. There's someone who I can't see very well. Kosa, good morning to you. We'd like to check in on how you're doing and if there's any part of the Heart Sutra that resonated. That'd be great.
Uh, I continue to do okay. I'm actually contemplating starting to go to my office, which will be quite a relief because like everything is where I can reach it, and I don't need to reboot 4 or 5 times a day because of the link between my. It'll be a relief. Someday maybe I'll, have some human interaction, and that will be nice too. Though I am thinking that it will probably be a year or more before we can hug, other than within our household unit, and that's painful to contemplate. And as to I've been having lots to think about with respect to the third precept, Sushim, but nothing much with respect to the Heart Sutra.
Thank you. Noju.
Hi. Yeah, I've been doing pretty well. So every Monday I have an online kind of kirtan and singing session, and my co-host is in Chicago and she lives in Uptown. And so Monday night I called her and we connected on Zoom, and the riots and the protesting were literally right outside of her street in Uptown, and that was an old neighborhood that I used to work in. So I ended up staying online with her about 5 hours just because she's also living alone like I am and was quite frightened. So that's been on my mind a lot recently, that, and I'm part of a theater project to raise awareness of what's happening to the Asian American community during this time of the coronavirus. And I didn't know, but the director lives in Minneapolis, and so everything got suspended. And so all of that happened at the same time. And so that's really been in my awareness a lot. The state of emergency in Peru has been extended now 3 months. So it's been extended until the end of September. So yeah, it's been a very kind of intense week, I feel, for me, processing a lot. The part of the Heart Sutra, I think we talked a little bit about it last Sunday, was the radiant, peerless mantram, the utmost supreme mantram that is capable of allaying all pain. And I was thinking about that, capable of allaying all pain. And I think right now, really rooting, like I have more time since we're all at home to root in my practices, and that I'm so grateful for, because it is a source of allaying pain to come back to my practices, like meditation, like Reiki, like yoga, to ground and root in practices, to be more centered. That part really resonated.
Thank you. And there's that radiant and radical, right, which is also root. So I will never be able to do that verse without thinking of Sushin's presentation. So exactly. And I'm not, I know I probably know you and I'm not recognizing your face, but V Run. You're welcome.
It's my friend I invited.
Oh,
wow. Okay. Nice to meet you. Yeah.
It's actually Varun. Yeah, I don't know why it says V Run. I change it every time I come on the Zoom.
But there you go. Well, welcome V Run. Yeah. What's
yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Would you like us to call you something else?
It's Varun. Varun.
Okay.
Yeah, I try to change my name on there, but it keeps going back to V Run because I mistyped it the first time I came on Zoom.
Okay. So how are you this morning, or
I'm doing good. I'm currently in South Florida, just visiting one of my friends. Yeah, so I practice. I practiced Zen before, so but this is the first time I've heard the Heart Sutra in English, and it reminded me that I should probably study it more. So,
Did any part of it jump out at you or resonate or?
yeah, it's there's just so much meaning in it. I feel that a lot of it, I feel that the emptiness, especially, I need to begin to kind of experience it, try to experience it more rather than try to intellectualize it, because I sometimes think about this too much. And yeah, what I really find interesting about the Heart Sutra is for me, it really reminds me of practice, and to keep practicing, experiencing each moment, the connectedness. And so so yeah, I mean, I've recited it in Japanese a few hundred times, but I suppose I haven't really looked into the meaning of the entire Heart Sutra. So it was really nice to recite it in English.
Oh, great. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
Welcome. Yeah. Jogan, good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Hanging in there, a little better now. This week I felt sort of, when you have that feeling of just, it's not even so much tired, it's sort of a lethargy. That it's part physical, but part not. And interestingly enough, I think one of the things that helped me through it was, apropos to what Varun said, I hope I'm saying that correctly, about emptiness and understanding or trying to experience emptiness, in the sense that of not having inherent standalone in a vacuum meaning, that things don't exist in themselves. And so in the Heart Sutra, where it says, and I'm reading from Red Pine, I just didn't print out the other, here Shataputra, all dharmas are defined by emptiness, not birth or destruction, purity or defilement, completeness or deficiency. And so the way I tried to work through that this week was when all of the destruction and just the hateful rhetoric flying around, instead of trying to put them into forms and put them into boxes and put them into categories, I just sat and I just listened and didn't weigh in, didn't, make statements either to myself or to others or to what have you. I just found that it was helpful to just listen, for better or for worse. There's a lot of things that are hard to hear, but just simply trying to focus on that present instead of trying to project backwards and project forwards. I felt like that sort of lifted that fatigue for me. And I think for me, that was a big lesson for whether it's whether it's coronavirus or whether it's to call it racial unrest is an understatement, or even the cicadas, which of course they have to come back because it's 2020. So that for me has actually been very helpful and very instructive this week. So that's my notion for the day.
Thank you. I'll call on Gata. Be surprised.
Well, Noir and I both have lots to do, so at least for me, time passes quickly. And all that's going on in the collective is, I have a hard time explaining what it is, but it does take me back to my youth in the 1960s. And there's similarities and there are differences. And, sometimes I'm worried and sometimes I'm excited about it. So I don't really know how I feel about it. There's just a lot of things going on. What I do know that I feel is I miss my kids. My son and grandson in Vermont, and my daughter and husband are in St. Louis. And like Hosa said, I can't hug them over the internet. As for the Heart Sutra, what strikes me about it, as it has, for the last 2 months, is the no, 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 no. And what came to me is, it's like the second foundation stone.
Mm.
Nothing is required, and that's called contentment. So I don't have to figure anything out. It just is already there. And I sense it every once in a while. I can't say that it sticks around all day, but there it is. That's where I'm at right now.
Sushan Bob, good to see you.
Good morning.
Morning.
I'm doing okay. Yeah, I could relate to a lot of what people were saying. Joe Gom saying that feeling of lethargy. I was feeling that earlier this morning. And also you mentioning emptiness, because emptiness in this context, I think has something to do with interconnectedness, because it's empty. If something's empty, it means it's empty of sort of individuality, if you will,
Right.
or isolation. And interconnectedness is there. Indra's net, we talk about that analogy. It's there whether you know it or not. But a large part of the reason we got to where we are, racial relations, divisions, and all these massive problems, is because of maybe denial of interconnectedness. I could have been reading some books that I didn't read till now, just for one example. And so it's that that really stuck out with me. So it was like a lack of understanding or willingness to understand the interconnectedness in all its ways. And so it's just, maybe it's a further deepening our understanding of interconnectedness will help us.
Thanks. Okay, good morning. Oh, you're muted.
So the part of the Heart Sutra that stuck out to me is, without hindrance, there is no fear, and being away from perverted views. And during this time of so much anguish and fear, I think in the spirit of gate gate parasam gate bodhi svaha, there seems to be like a lot of intellectualizing about what is happening, particularly kind of among liberal elites. And I mean, like, everybody wants to know what book to read and what Twitter feeds they should be following. But I find all of that very hollow and kind of like more of an echo chamber. And I think that sometimes I am prone to sort of cast off one perverted view and just for another one. I am really just thinking about what working with practice means and how that is apart from intellectualizing when something happens in a way that I think is actually pretty alienating to people who might not be of an academic discourse community. I'm trying to use that in my practice to get into my perverted views and trying to get beyond them.
And I'll go before I turn it over to Sanbang and the Gate Gate round one, because I think it's worth sticking with it, actually.
Mhm.
And along those lines, Casey Lemons, who directed Harriet, did an op-ed in the Washington Post about it's a white people. The title was "White People, Your Lack of Imagination is Killing Us," and it was, and one of the sentences was, that white people can't allow themselves to access Black pain and Black rage, because if we did, we wouldn't know what to do with it, and we'd have to accept our responsibility for it. And I think along the lines of what a lot of people have said, and especially Oche, that practice, and especially the Heart Sutra, which is so kind of corrosive, as soon as that stuff starts to build up, like, oh, I can understand this, and I could, all those things that we put between ourselves and pain and compassion, and it just kind of says, oh, you're doing it again, no, right? And just to allow ourselves to sink into the suffering, which is really kind of unfathomable, literally, right? It just seems to go on. It's so deep, and so it's been going on for so long, and and so just starting to get kind of a hint of that and being aware. I think what happens, we were talking about this earlier, I think everybody is afraid of vulnerability in their own and other people, and that kind of leads to scapegoating and violence and trying to push it away. And so really increasing our ability to sink in, this holding on to nothing and sinking into this vulnerability, our inability to sink into it is always like, oh, we've got to grab onto something to protect ourselves. And the Heart Sutra says, oh, that's not, don't grab that, and don't grab, like, just think that that's all there is. So, so I've said it before, but it's, practice, and even the Heart Sutra, and I feel incredibly blasphemous just having this thought, but is, these sort of sewage treatment plants of where do we go, right, with all of the stuff that just comes up, and the fear and the anguish and the resentment and all of the stuff, and how do we, not to get rid of it, but to channel it and use it and sink deeper into it. So I'm just really feeling that, and like I said, I can feel the glacier starting to melt, and it's kind of, it's terrifying and kind of horrifying to open yourself up to that kind of that built up rage. But I think it's so necessary, and I think the only way forward goes through that. So whatever we can use to soften ourselves and practice humility and listening and all the things that I'm talking too much and not doing a good job of. But yeah, so there you go. Such as it is. Yeah. So Sanbang.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you? First.
I'm doing well. That was all really helpful. Especially Oche's talking about not intellectualizing, which there's so much coming at us these days. And I think that was really helpful to just sit with our practice, and also saying about just being present and not letting it all, not having to respond or even think about it all, was really helpful. As I've said before, I have immediate family who's very much opposite viewpoints, and unfortunately, we're on common email threads and common text threads, and I'm constantly bombarded with all sorts of viewpoints that I don't appreciate. So yeah, a lot of that just sitting and not responding and not even reacting is I think really was helpful to hear. So leading into that and not intellectualizing, I'll get into the gate, what I learned and discovered. Okay, so let me find my page. Okay, the gate, parasamgate, bodhisvaha. So I'll start with the meaning of the words, and there's many translations that I've found, but they all follow the same general idea, which is the gate being defined as gone or going or understood or understanding, or even into the gone or into the understanding. And the para adds beyond to that. So gone beyond, or gone into the gone beyond, or into the understanding beyond. With para sangate, the san adds completely. So gone completely beyond, or into the gone completely beyond. Then we conclude with bodhisvaha, bodhi meaning enlightenment or Buddha, and svaha as an exclamatory, such as amen or hallelujah or at last. So, like I said, all of the definitions I read were very similar. And the interesting thing about the mantra is that those who have translated it into their own languages have left the mantra in the original Sanskrit, as Red Pine suggests it's to preserve the spiritual potency of the mantra. Red Pine says that mantras are knowledge that transcend our normal understanding of knowledge. They are the creation of beings in touch with the underlying vibrations of the mind and the keys that unlock its power through sympathetic harmonics. He says there's often a distinction between a dharani and a mantra, whereby mantras are said to be strings of one or more syllables not meant to be understood. He says a mantra is like a magic lamp. If you rub it correctly, its resident genie will appear. And Andre Padu, who's mentioned in Red Pine's book, in his book, Understanding Mantras, he says a mantra has a use rather than a meaning. Once you catch the meaning, you can forget the words. So I guess going beyond the words, we look at the spirit of the mantra. Red Pine suggests that the word around which the mantra and the entire sutra revolves is beyond. Whatever it is, this teaching is beyond it, including itself. He says the function of the mantra is to go beyond language and the categories in which language imprisons us, and lead us into the womb of Prajnaparamita. For it is from the womb of Prajnaparamita that Buddhas are born. So also in Red Pine's book, Hung Chung, I think is how it's pronounced. He's said to have reflected the radical attitude towards enlightenment of the early Zen schools. And he said about the mantra, a mantra like this points directly at the mind because it is neither moving nor still. You can't use the mind to find the mind. Because the mind has no beginning or end, you can't use the mind to put an end to the mind. Because there's no inside, outside, or in between, if you look for the mind, there's no place to find it. If there's no place to find it, then you can't find it. Therefore, you should realize there is no mind at all. The Tathagata appeared in the world to save those who are completely lost and to help them awaken to their own mind. When you chant this mantra, don't give rise to deluded thoughts. This is how you should uphold it. And so in concluding, I just wanted to read, I came across a little commentary on a website called The Yoga People, and I thought this was really beautiful. They translate the mantra as going, going, going on beyond, always going on beyond, always becoming Buddha. And they say, this seems a marvelous thought. It suggests movement toward awakening. It expresses the enlightenment of a Buddha as an unfolding process rather than a steady state. It puts us in the hopeful position of one who may not have arrived, but who may be on the way. The destination may not be an end, but the journey itself. Use the mantra to take you beyond. Let it take you to the other shore. Allow it to awaken you. Let it remind you of your becoming. Let it carry you away without your leaving. Repeat the mantra to yourself. Say it over and over. Through repetition, it will become part of you. Through diligent practice, you may become part of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments? It was lovely.
Well,
One of
I'd
the
like
things
to.
that, sorry, go please.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
You sure?
Yeah, absolutely.
I forgive me, Sanbang. I can't remember exactly how you the wording, but it builds on what many of us were saying earlier when we did our check-in of not that the meaning is not in the words, but the meaning is in the mantra, which seems like a contradiction, but people kind of intuitively get that it's very much in that theme of not overthinking it, and just letting it sort of course through and just sort of dwell within you. That was a really lovely thought and just resonated and made a lot of sense.
Thank you. I wanted to add, so I work a lot with kirtan, which is singing and chanting mantras. And part of the work I do in Peru is singing different medicine songs. So I love singing and connecting to mantras. And it's the same thing, that same part you were saying, it has a function and a purpose, not necessarily connected to the meaning, right, of itself. And what it made me think of, I don't know if you're, the Ho'oponopono prayer is a mantra that I chant a lot. And so it's Hawaiian. And then the Ho'oponopono mantra, the sayings are just 4 sayings. I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. It's just those 4 statements. And then you chant them over and over. And part of the story behind that prayer was there was a man who read through the files of incarcerated people. And these people were incarcerated for very violent crimes. He never met them, but he would meditate on them and he would think of each person and keep repeating this mantra. And the story is that at the end, they actually had to close down the prison because all these people then were released because of the power of him praying and saying these mantras for them. Yeah, and that's kind of the story behind the Ho'oponopono. And I also thought about Ma'om, right? How we chant Ma'om and we focus on our heart, right? And it's not the meat, I mean, it does mean literally heart in Korean, but more the resonance, the idea of that as we're chanting and feeling that vibration in our hearts, right? It's beyond the meaning of the word. It is the purpose, the function, the power of mantras. And so when you were saying, like, it doesn't matter what language, they always kept that mantra as is in that original Sanskrit, because there's something that doesn't translate in that way, right? That it's transmuted specifically in that mantra, that vibration of those words. And I think it's quite powerful and it's quite beautiful.
Could you repeat those four lines again?
I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Is there any chance you could chant it once or twice?
Really?
We can hear
Sure.
it? Or I mean, I don't want to, if it's a thing that isn't well taken out of context, or if that's
No, absolutely.
to
Let me
do,
just close,
then, go right ahead.
close my door so I don't disturb my neighbors upstairs. Okay. So, and then it's also, since I'm here in Peru, we kind of go back and forth between English and Spanish. It was, I'm sorry, please forgive me. Thank you, I love you. I'm sorry, please forgive me. Thank you, I love you. Lo siento, perdóname. Gracias, te amo. Lo siento, perdóname. Gracias, te amo. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you.
That's going in my daily practice.
I'm so glad. Thank you.
Make me cry. Oh. Right on cue. Any other, wow. Any other comments? I'm feeling a little, yeah.
That might be a mic drop.
Yeah.
I think it is a mic drop. And I think actually, and so I'm thinking a little bit about what we can do next week. And I had something in mind, but I think it's changed listening to everyone. And I'm wondering if we all practiced with the Gate Gate Paragate Parasamgate Bodhisvaha, if we kind of brought that into our attention following the beautiful things that Sanbang said. And we all practice with it this week and just kind of tune in next week, right? Chant the Heart Sutra again, and then just kind of check in with how has, how has it eroded a little bit, right? The stuff that's all that, kind of build up in the pipes, and all the stuff that's, just to check in. It can be checking in and start saying, wow, it left me cold and I switched to a no juice thing, and or just checking in. Does that sound like something to do next week, and just go
Sounds great.
and practice with it for a week, and then just see where we are next week and whether and how it helps us respond to things as they're very, very heart sutra-y right now outside, right? Very unstable and uncertain, and it's hard to hold on to things, and to have this tool to sort of harmonize with it or surf with it rather than try to stop or fix it. So does that sound like a good plan, Kosa? You look thoughtful. Yeah, and then we'll do that.
There,
And then
got it.
right.
You know, what I'm thinking with all of that is, why are we all talking about this instead of being out and yelling?
Oh, sure.
And I don't have an answer. I know that part of the answer for me is I'm chicken. And part of the answer is my obsessive compulsiveness, and I've got this stuff, and I have to do my stuff. But none of those are good reasons.
Yeah.
And you know, I think we are navel gazing when we ought to be protesting.
Interesting.
So that's, I wasn't going to say that.
No, go right ahead. I'm actually going to go yell at 2:00 in Evanston. There's a rally, but
Is it either or?
right. I was going to say, I think the Heart Sutra is actually can be good to sort of just be like, wow, this is where I'm being chicken, or this is where I'm holding on, like, and move on. But
Shogun, you were just saying, don't think, don't act, just be there, just listen, don't speak. And yes, this isn't the, you know, I don't think this is the time to listen. I think this is the time to speak. We've heard enough.
I think everybody, well, yeah, I don't want to keep piling on. I think it might be time for some people to listen. I actually am very sympathetic to you, Kosa, because I think especially Buddhism has a way of getting very patting yourself on the back for practicing and thinking that that's enough or sufficient. And I think
Sunim calls it navel gazing.
Yeah. Yeah, and I heard that a little bit, I think last week, even in Sanban, right, where you were like, this is just really frustrating me this week, right? Like, I'm angry at the Heart Sutra. Like, this just seems easy, right? It's capable of laying on pain, ta-da, like, this is, you know, kind of smug. So I think
also there's I think to be effective, you know, speaking for myself, that I'm not very effective in doing anything if I'm just projecting and I'm not taking the time to understand and to listen to myself and to listen to others.
And you know, of course, we went through this in the 60s. Action without thought is going to be misdirected and is going to be twisted and is going to come out wrong. On the other hand, disappearing until you get, well, what we said then was, I have to get my shit together before I take action. And then they disappear and they get their shit together and they never take action.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's got to be a balance.
Yeah. And that's why I think, oh, sorry.
And I'm afraid that we're on the wrong side of that balance.
Yeah. Well, and I just remember Sunim likes to say the big happiness is the realization that helping yourself is helping others and helping others is helping yourself. And that's that balance you're talking about, right? That you can start with the helping others, and that's actually practice, right? It doesn't have to be, oh, I have to get all my practice ducks in a row and then go out in the world, because there's always going to be a duck that refuses to get in a row. And yeah, that's what I'm hearing.
And Jogam, I want to apologize for jumping on you, but there it is.
Yeah.
It's not the first time.
I haven't jumped on you before.
No, I'm not talking about you.
Okay.
Any other feedback on that? Oche, Susha? No, Joe. Rune. Yeah. I think Sunim always does a very good job of reminding us of the energy and purpose and fierceness to put into practice, right? That it's not a kind of passive, am I okay, or my ducks in a row, etc. But it's really like, I don't know about you, and this is what I'm kind of talking about for next week is and this is just totally me, but after this session with all of you, and including what Kosa just said, I feel actually really energized and really kind of awake and ready to go out there at 2 o'clock down the street and yell. And so
Where are you going to be at 2 o'clock?
Evanston and Fountain Square, there's a rally sponsored by Black men in Evanston. So
Thank you.
yep. But you know, I also think the Indra's net thing, that any action, and I know Kosa, you know this because you've given great talks about it. And this is also just meant for you in the sense of our circumstances. I have students who their health doesn't allow them to go protest, and so they're doing this. The Indra's net principle is just to do something, and again, something other than worry about whether you're qualified to do something, but just take action, kind, intentional action, and to be confident that that ripples through the net in various ways, right? So there's, you know, in unintended ways. And so I do think at certain conjunctures, some action is more effective than others, but I think all action in that sense, the effect of it is felt throughout the net. I don't know what you think about that, Kosa, because I know you've spoken about that, but I completely take your point about, I think we can very much get stuck in just making sure that, because that's never going to happen, that we're all, that we've taken care of all of our stuff and all of our history and all of our complexes. And then once I've done that, I'll go out. No, that doesn't work.
I'd like to add that our practice and our curriculum, when we study to ordain, a large part of it is studying Korean Buddhism, but not sort of ancient Korean Buddhism, but Buddhism in response to modernity, particularly the Korean monastic response to the Japanese occupation. And it absolutely is a responsibility and an existential function for us to address the environmental degradation, human rights, peace, and the rampant materialism in this country. And that is, as I see it, is the fundamental reason that Sunim came to North America. And but we have to work with our practice. We have to represent an alternative to the way that others respond to these issues from a place of often from a place of anger. And that's not to say that people don't have a right to be angry and that anger doesn't have its place, but to bring forth our practice into the world from a place of deep love and compassion, I feel like is our fundamental purpose as practitioners, and that we always have to trace back that this actions to this place of deep compassion, so that we understand how we can be helpful in the world and not act from a place of rashness or flying off the handle. So I think that really is our charge.
Mm-hmm. And I would add to rashness and flying off the handle, self-satisfaction or self-aggrandizement, right? To act with humility and not because we want to sort of, take a selfie at a, right. Yeah. But yeah, Susan Bob.
I had to jump away for a second to look it up, but Peter Coyote, your buddy Kosa, the actor who's also a Zen priest, in one of his books, he says, "Love without power is flaccid. Power without love is brutal." And I thought that applies here. Yeah, I thought that was really good. So that's what's coming to mind for me. Love without power is flaccid. Power without love is brutal. So that probably is how we got where we got, and it's also how we can move on from where we are.
Yeah.
And Sunam says, suffering without humility creates bad karma.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm going to come back to, I'm not saying like sit at home and chant gate, gate, para, some gate all week. But to sort of maybe work with it as we encounter obstacles during this week, right? Whether they're the obstacles of, wow, I'm just feeling like I can't sink into the moment. I can't sink into the suffering. I can't sink into action. What are those obstacles? What are they about? Use the mantra, blast them out of your way, get to the next level, get beyond, just really work with the mantra in whatever form that takes. And to check back next week. Are we okay with that? Does that sound like a good thing to do?
Yeah.
Yes.
Just as an experiment. And Varun, hopefully you'll come back and join us again next week.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you for having me. And thanks,
Absolutely.
Jen, for inviting me.
Yeah, I'm so happy you're here.
Exactly. And we'll think about, so we'll do that for next week. We could, like I said, we could go for years, I think, with the Heart Sutra, but maybe not. And so to think about for next week too, to bring ideas about what we could do next, if anything. I think this format works. It allows people to go to the Ann Arbor service and then check in among ourselves. Again, but I'm open to very much being creative, and maybe we want to do a 4:00 service. Kosa. maybe we want to do a formal 4:00 service on Sundays, right? And then have a discussion Q&A after that. That just popped into my head, but again, not holding on to this gate is already like, I'm letting go of this must be Sunday mornings and it must be this way. And something we might want to look at is the right livelihood guidelines, because I think those, which I know Kosa, you were involved in creating those. I think they're super, super duper. You weren't? Okay, but I think they might be really useful, especially as we look for ways to apply our practice practically in these times. That those might be really nice to just go through them and take one or a set of one each week. That's just something I'm throwing out there, but I'm really very much open to other ideas. I am holding on to nothing but Prajna Paramita, doing my best to do so. So thank you for coming. Should we 4 great vows, and then we'll turn it over. I'll leave the channel to Sushan Bob and the precept takers and renewers. Before I do that, Sushan Bob, if you and Sabaha could actually get the names, birthdays, birthplaces of everybody. And then and get those to Sanha. You could just write straight to Sanha and just copy me. Okay. That would be super. I keep forgetting to tell you that.
Yeah. I'll take care of that. Great.
Thanks.
That's for the precept takers, not the precept renewers.
It's right? For precept takers, and I'll double check about renewers on Tuesday. Like if there's anything that they need to do, you're probably not going to get it. You'll get a belated stamp. Is probably what's going to happen.
Great, thank you.
Right, so all beings, one body. I vow to liberate blind passions, one root. I vow to terminate Dharma gates, one mind. I vow to penetrate the great way of Buddha. I vow to realize. I come back to those 4 great vows more and more often these days as well. And it just, again, I think in these moments of crisis, our practice starts glowing and shining and taking on really a life of its own. So thank you all for coming, and thanks for practicing, and see you next week. We will be here. We're still 10:30 next week. So have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nora.
Thank you so much, Noju. Yeah. And thank you, Sanba.